Yo, we got every change in Dragon Ball Super's remaster. I need everything in here. I need that Moral arc. I need that Granola arc. I need the Black Frieza stuff. I need the extra super stuff from when it was like UI Goku and Beast Gohan fighting. That's a major spoiler. I'm not gonna lie to you. So if you haven't read the manga, I'm sorry I just spoiled that for you. But yeah, that's kind of what happens. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this video.
There's something you might not have noticed in the latest Dragon Ball Super remaster trailer. It's got nothing to do with the action, the animation, or even the more sinister tone. It's the subtle indication that the story might need to change. We know that this isn't a remake based on the manga, but we do know what comes next. Moro. Both the anime and the manga were built from Toriyama's plot outlines, but they diverged heavily in execution. Arcs start and end at the same points while taking fundamentally different paths, resulting in two versions of Super that are incompatible in key areas. That incompatibility was fine when they existed separately, but now the
Blue Kaioken Goku will always be my favorite form.
Moro arc,
That
built
form was
entirely
so
on the manga's foundation, is being adapted. Thus, certain elements from the anime as it currently exists simply won't work with what Moro requires. So, the question I'm asking is, what will they change? And more importantly, what must they change for Moro to even function? Chronologically, the Moro arc comes right after the Broly movie, and so this means there are several arcs in need of adjustment in the anime. So, I thought, what better way to build...
He said what?
This means there are several function. Chronologically, the Moro arc comes right after the Broly movie, and so this...
It does? That doesn't even make sense, though. Oh, wait, no. Because Broly movie arc was after Tournament of Power. Okay,
this means there are several arcs in need of adjustment in the anime, so I thought what better way to build anticipation than by going through this manga arc by arc and pinpointing every change that could very well find its way into this remaster. I might also include stuff that I want on my wish list. The Battle of Gods arc. Unlike most of the arcs we'll talk about today, this arc is
Super Saiyan God.
It doesn't quite...
Super Saiyan God is one of the best looking forms.
Adhere to how future arcs would look both at Toriyama's notes as a blueprint and then swerve off in their own respective directions. Both versions are ultimately pulling from the film, but at the same time, they're both not doing that too. And I think it's worth explaining why. The movie itself wasn't adapted from a finished Toriyama script. It was built through an extended back and forth between Toriyama and its screenwriter. Toriyama stepped in early and heavily overhauled the story, cementing things like the Pilaf return, Beerus and Whis, and the Super Saiyan God form, but we know he left other details looser, instead asking for the writer to convey a feeling rather than a specific event. And I think that explains why some events could shift between versions without contradicting his intent entirely. Concerning the location, his note was probably something like, they're celebrating Bulma's birthday, and not, they are specifically at Capsule Corporation celebrating Bulma's birthday, which explains why they could change the location without much issue. But we do know, based on producer Akio Ioku's comment at the remaster's announcement, that they want to try and be more in keeping with Toriyama's vision, which implies they departed in some ways he didn't like. I mean, after all, Toriyama famously complained about Super, so perhaps that's why Beerus' wake-up scene is restored instead of him already being awake. We know from leaks that Goku will have his image training from the first chapter of the manga, so it's clear they're willing to pull from that now to some degree. It's also important to remember that at the time, the Super manga began as a promotional project, not a full standalone retelling. Of course, since then, we've seen Toriyama jump on board with Toyotaro and turn that thing into a full-fledged manga on its own, long since casting aside its purely promotional value. So if they're happy to put more emphasis on the manga, we might have a little more to go on, despite its incompleteness at the time. Who knows, maybe they'll cut the rock, paper, scissors scene and Goku will show up in the middle of Vegeta's fight with Beerus like he does in the manga. Lord knows it's better than what we actually got. Okay, probably not, but I do think there is one element of Toyotaro's retelling that feels especially worth drawing from: the early inclusion of Champa and Vados. Now, a critique I stood by for years regarding Dragon Ball Super's anime has been its inability to tie the disparate arcs together in any meaningful fashion. Battle of Gods tried to flow naturally into Resurrection F, but no legwork was done within the confines of the main story itself. Resurrection F just ends and then the Universe 6 tournament begins.
And then there's this cut.
And once that's over, we suddenly kick into the Goku Black arc. Super's manga remedies this as early as Chapter 2. Through introducing Champa and Vados as being up to something, the wheels are already set in motion for the Universe 6 tournament, all the while dealing with the heavy lifting of characterizing these two in advance. Their inclusion also, and actions, while limited and small, also serves to necessitate the events of the Golden Frieza material. Now, I'm under no illusion that large deviations from the core story likely won't be possible, but what I'm talking about here isn't that. It's just 2 scenes, and for me, this is the biggest wish for this arc. It's only a minor amount of extra work and serves to adequately address Super's most fundamental issue narratively. Oh, and you know, while I'm at it, you know what else I'm wishing for? I want those flashbacks to Z to be reanimated to the modern style. It was always so jarring going from modern back to classic and then back to modern again. So yeah, for that I pray. The Golden Frieza arc. This one's a big old mountain to tackle, so bear with me. Not only did it significantly depart from a script Toriyama penned himself, but it was also an absolute disaster on the animation side of things. You thought One Punch Man Season 3 was bad? Take a look at this.
Already dead.
On the narrative side of things, we have Togama still alive, Piccolo dies to protect Gohan, Ginyu is randomly there. It's a whole messy departure, so are they just going to axe all of that? I mean, Goten and Trunks showing up was cool, but is that really worth keeping around if we have to keep all of that other stuff? I mean, we don't even have Toyotaro's manga to draw from unless you count the tiny snippet he drew to promote the movie, so broadly speaking, I'm not entirely sure what to expect with this one. But I do have a couple of things I'd at least like to see considered. First of all, let's maybe just go back to the movie version of events as a starting point, and then, now bear with me, let's look at Jocko the Galactic Patrolman. A large element of the Moro arc will inevitably concern itself with the Galactic Patrol, and it's never hugely elaborated on when Jocko first appears. I mean, I think every Dragon Ball fan knows at least one person who was like, who the fuck is that when Jocko appeared? So the more we can learn about him and that organization early on, the better shape we will be in once the Moro arc does arrive. Go on, just give me a line or two. It won't hurt. Now, on a more serious note, I do think that with the power of hindsight, it might be worth addressing the consistency of the story's mechanics. While they don't have a full Toyotaro version to pull from here, they do have his future stories as well as Toriyama's own scripts to look at. Both of them were very consistent in how they treated Super Saiyan God. Toyotaro had it in the Universe 6 tournament and throughout the Goku Black arc, and Toriyama was happy to use it in his Broly script. The anime, however, didn't really get the memo until the Tournament of Power, at which point I think a lot of people were scratching their heads like, okay, so why didn't we see this for like the past 3 story arcs? This is all to say that personally, I think this is an easy win. You get to bring it closer to both Toyotaro and Toriyama's intentions, make it consistent with Moro, and presumably throw in the cool mechanical advantage it offers over Blue in certain instances. I mean, who wouldn't want a more diverse moveset to draw from? Now, with that said, I'm not suggesting this needs to feature prominently, but a minor inclusion during this arc would set the record straight where it makes the most sense to do so. And who knows, maybe it'll make its way into the Universe 6 Tournament arc. For many people,
they wouldn't like reanimate Broly movie stuff, right? Like if they're redoing stuff from Battle of the Gods, shouldn't they do stuff from the Broly movie too? Because Broly movie was after that. I feel like that makes sense.
The Universe 6 arc is where Super really began. Not just because it was the first new story arc following the retellings, but because it felt like a visual step up over the disastrous Resurrection F telling. But was it really? I mean, really? There's a lot of reanimation that's going to need to be done here before we even start talking about tweaks.
So good.
I mean, yeah, sure, I think they could probably pull in elements like the Beerus versus Champa flashback fight. Heck, maybe even change the time chamber stuff to reflect their blue forms. There's a lot of very easy minor tweaks to be made, but the thing I'm most concerned about is something cemented in Dragon Ball Super's fandom consciousness. Yep, Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. I'm sure we all noticed that despite its prevalence across the entirety of the series, that little old thing was very much missing from both the manga and Dragon Ball Super Broly. And so it sure doesn't seem like Toriyama was particularly...
Bro, if I would have seen If I would have seen that form in Super Broly, that would have easily been my favorite movie.
Keen on this given its absence in the things he was most directly in the driving seat for. Now, listen. I watched episode 39 live. The Kaioken
Imagine a Gogeta Blue Kaioken. Oh my god, that would have been nasty.
is my favorite technique in the entire series, but Toriyama never incorporated it in any of his work, so if the remaster is actually serious about aligning with his vision, and Moro demands that it does, then Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken needs to change. But here's the thing. There are two ways they could go about addressing this issue. The first is the bigger swing. Replace it entirely. And conveniently, the manga already has an answer nestled within the framework of the single biggest deviation the arc makes from the anime, in Goku versus Hit. While the bout kicks off in familiar fashion, Toriyama's vision for this fight starts to take shape once Goku reveals his regular Super Saiyan God form instead of his more powerful Blue. And that vision Toriyama had was resource management. By this point in the arc, Vegeta had fought more battles than Goku, meaning his power output in Blue was less than that which Goku could more economically dish out in his base God form. This is the manga's answer. Instead of strapping old techniques onto new transformations, the story forces its characters to actually master what they have newly attained. And in essence, this lesson echoes what the prior two arcs established. In Battle of Gods, Goku learned he needed to make God his own, and in Resurrection F, stamina was the deciding factor instead of raw strength alone. Super Saiyan Blue, while more powerful than Super Saiyan God, is a dramatically more intense stamina drain on both Saiyans. Thus, the tournament highlighted a need to master the Super Saiyan Blue form, similar to how Gohan and Goku did during the Cell arc of Z with Super Saiyan. However, there is another route I alluded to. And honestly, it might be the more intelligent choice because, in addition to this Kaioken moment feeling earned, it's a moment from the modern series that many fans would likely miss, myself included, so perhaps instead of removing it entirely, the remaster could phase it out, allowing it to remain this one high-stakes, desperate gamble in the Universe 6 tournament and insist on cutting it from everything else that follows. In a sense, this would prevent the creation of more work in the remaster of this arc, while also allowing the story to progress in a fashion closer to what Toriyama had in mind. The Future Trunks arc.
She really
The Universe
shot at the
Survival
sky,
arc.
bro.
Okay, fine. The Future Trunks arc. I'm honestly not sure what to even do with this arc. Not a whole lot needs to change to make the Moro arc function really here, so you could pull in Vegeta's use of the Super Saiyan God form from the manga to once again make that form's usage feel consistent with the future material, but everything else would just be about making this not a slog, and also not ugly. God, it was so ugly in so many places. If it were up to me, I'd adapt to virtually everything the manga offered. Sure, the mystery aspect is less emphasized, but so many of the issues I have with the Black Arc stem from narrative inconsistencies and stretches of pacing that are genuinely painful and grueling to sit through. However, a full do-over isn't
my
on
god, that's Vegeta. Yo, oh my god, that looks terrible. Bro, look at his face. Oh nah, bruh. This genuinely looks like if like a 5-year-old tried to draw Vegeta, bro. Like, bro, what is this? Oh heck nah, bruh. The hair does not look good either, bruh. Goku. I mean, Goku looks fine. Goku looks like if someone tried to draw him from memory. But this looks terrible. Same with this, bro.
On the card, so what is realistic? Well, for starters, how about the trips to the past? In the anime, 3 trips are made. In the manga, 2 are made. And look, for as much as I love Trunks and Gohan interacting, it's probably safe to assume that they'll cut a whole episode's worth of their escapades. There's a lot of padding in this story after all, and yeah, we all remember Goku fighting Zamasu, but that episode also had a pretty sizable chunk dedicated to the Pilaf gang helping Mai stalk Trunks. There are stacks of stuff like this, so trimming that down to match the manga a little closer incurs no extra work and immediately tightens the pacing of the arc, I think. Now on top of that, and again depending on how they choose to handle the conclusion of the Universe 6 tournament, a portion of the arc could focus on Goku and Vegeta's attempt to genuinely master Super Saiyan Blue. And if that's the route that they take, then reworking Black's path to Super Saiyan Rose through the traditional Super Saiyan forms becomes both narratively possible and relatively low effort to implement. It's just a color swap after all. But even outside of pacing and consistency, the manga's character writing and set pieces are also a pretty sizable improvement overall. Goku is sharper and less forgetful in the manga. The battle against Fuse Zamasu is far more innovative and memorable, and there's even a rare moment of genuine narrative emotion that drives Vegeta to fuse with Goku, something the anime chose to make a joke of again, and honestly it might be my favorite part of this arc in the manga. However, for as much as I've glazed the manga here, it's clearly far from perfect. It still suffers from the same logic gaps and holes. I mean, there's practically a whole video into and of itself to discuss there. But despite these issues, it still manages to pull off a much more compelling fight and a better progression of the story. So, what's the best we can realistically hope for? It's kind of tough to say. A pacing fix? Yeah, sure. Animation fixes? Absolutely. But narratively, probably nothing major. I think if I'm right about them wanting to iron out inconsistencies and create more unity in the story, then Super Saiyan Rage is gonna get the cut, Blue Kaioken might be swapped out again. Heck, if they do the training they did in the manga to try to master their blue forms, they don't even need to draw the auras anymore. Come on, what else do you need to sell this on the production side of things? But honestly, an ending change? The future is gone in all versions of this story, manga or anime, and the only difference is how they play out, so we might have to suck it up and hope the vibes carry this like the manga did, but ultimately, this is clearly a Toriyama plot point that he stood by. Despite how much it sucks, it seems to be set in stone, because ultimately, the point of this arc's conclusion is to make Zeno terrifying before the Universe Survival arc. Yes, the Universe Survival arc. The only arc that, when initialized, sends a shiver down my spine. But before we dive in, I think it's worth pointing to a question we haven't really had to ask until now. Are we even going to touch this one? This was the arc that marked a total production overhaul for Dragon Ball Super. New directors, new compositing, a completely different feel. And in spite of some iffy looking moments here and there, it delivered some genuinely all-time bangers on a semi-consistent basis. And that's not even to mention the sheer scale of the task.
Well, they can make it look this good from back then they can definitely make it look better now. They definitely need to reanimate this, because Ultra Instinct is gonna look way better.
Arc represents. At 55 episodes in length, the Universe Survival arc accounts for 42% of the entire Dragon Ball Super anime, which means before a single frame of animation is even touched, there is a staggering amount of potential fat to trim. We do not need entire episodes
I mean, they're making us wait till like 2028 for the Moro arc to even start. They better animate this.
Dedicated to fights that carry no narrative weight. The majority of the tournament episodes could be trivially combined, and once you start looking at the stretch of build-up episodes, it becomes even more obvious. Do we really need an entire episode dedicated to Goku and Android 17 fighting space poachers?
We do not.
No. The answer is no. So realistically, what does a remaster of this arc actually look like? The only real major contradiction that does need to be addressed within the Universe Survival arc context is how the anime chose to implement an angry Ultra Instinct, which just can't work in the manga's telling of the Moro arc. It just runs counter to the entire philosophy of how he masters the form. So as long as that is addressed, I think the rest is just a recut. A tighter, leaner version of what's already there with some polish on top. And honestly, that's fine. If for no other reason than by the time production reaches this arc, I'm willing to wager the key artistic figures within Toei itself would likely be moved over to start ramping up production on the Moro arc itself. Unless they take a break during this remaster to work on that, but without that, it kinda seems unavoidable. And that's not even to make mention of the manga. By this point in Toyotaro's tenure, he was so determined to catch back up with the anime that the actual Tournament of Power he produced, while it had some cool moments admittedly, felt as though it had the opposite problem, trying to do too much too quickly. Though, depending on your preference, that might actually be a good thing. Now, aside from that, the manga was also very much doing its own thing by this point. resulting in a finished arc that offered so many differences that the idea of bridging the gap between these two versions feels more impossible than it does likely to me. Dragon Ball Super Broly. Now, just like the prior arc, I find myself asking, will they even bother with Broly? We are well into pipe dream territory with this one, but let's think about what this remaster is actually trying to achieve first. Franchise unity. And that goal doesn't really work if you have to tell someone to go off and watch a movie between seasons. There's a reason Demon Slayer and Boruto retold their films in their respective anime. And I mean, the whole reason we even got movie retellings in the original Dragon Ball Super was because Toriyama wanted to avoid TV audiences getting lost. Battle of Gods is literally getting its third release. Don't you dare tell me that this is impossible. But it does have complications. Fans have often wondered why Toei refused to just use existing footage from the films and animate new scenes between those. You know, like every other studio does? We've never actually had an official answer, but it's often suggested that they didn't want to pay Fox, who distributed those movies worldwide up until Superhero. So the question then becomes, would they just accept that they need to cough up the cash, or would they actually try to reanimate the best looking Dragon Ball film ever made? Now, while I don't think the chances of them adapting Broly into a TV series is anything other than vanishingly low, the concept of such a project offers a deceptive amount to be excited for. We know Toriyama's original screenplay for Broly was 3 hours long. Nagamine confirmed his team had to trim it down to fit within a reasonable scope, so there's content written by Toriyama that's just sitting there that no one has ever seen. Would it be the end of the world if they didn't include it? Probably not. It's not that annoying to say, hey, watch this series, then this movie, then start Moro, compared to what we had to do before for the best experience. But it's not ideal. We see Goku try and fail to tap into Ultra Instinct in Dragon Ball Super Broly, and that's referenced at the very start of Moro and ties directly into its triumphant return in the arc's climax. Skipping it kinda creates a gap. Ultimately, we don't know what the scope of this project is beyond what we saw in the trailer and what insiders have hinted at. It seems to be redraws, a few plot additions, and some new cuts of action to replace the unfixable old stuff. As I said in my last video, it just seems like a grander attempt at what Toei already did with One Piece's Fishman Island remaster. I've tried to stay within the scope of that throughout this video and think carefully about what would and wouldn't go beyond what this project actually is. It'd be disappointing if this remaster didn't result in a more consistent and coherent viewing experience, but ultimately...
Yo, nah, they definitely need to reanimate that, bro. Like, what is this? Come on, bruh. I can draw this right now, bruh.
Ultimately, even if it's just Dragon Ball Super but nicer looking and better paced, that's at least a small win in my book. And even if they do manage to thread the needle, laying the groundwork for Moro without completely overhauling everything, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get the version of Super that should have existed in the first place. Thanks for watching.
Dang, bruh, that's crazy. I need my arcs to be reanimated, bruh. Broly movie, I wouldn't be mad if they turn that into like part of the series, but I feel like it should stay a movie. They need to reanimate that. It would look so much cleaner if they reanimated that with the stuff they have now, plus Moral arc. They definitely need to do that, bro.